The music world has just given Justin Bieber a reality check that few saw coming. His newest album has dropped so sharply that both fans and critics are left in shock. People expected him to dominate as usual, but the results turned out to be the complete opposite of what anyone thought would happen. The numbers came in, and instead of celebrating another big win, the story has been one of disappointment and confusion. The drop was massive. In its second week, the album saw a 57% decline, a crash so steep that it sent waves through the entire entertainment industry. This wasn't just a small dip that could be brushed off. It was a collapse that left insiders asking themselves where things went wrong. Bieber, who once set the standard for global pop success, now finds himself facing questions about his direction, his music, and his future in the business. Looking at the sales, the situation becomes clearer. In the first week, the album only sold around 6,000 physical copies in the entire United States. To understand how low that is, consider that in the early 2000s, major artists were selling up to 1.5 million physical albums during their first week alone. Back then, fans lined up at stores just to grab a CD. But for Bieber, the second week made things worse, with physical sales falling all the way down to only 1,000 copies. Streaming numbers helped slightly, adding about 70,000 units, but even that wasn't anywhere near the expectations for someone of his stature. The lead single, Daisies, had a short-lived moment of success, climbing to the top of iTunes, but that victory lasted for just one day before the song quickly lost momentum and slipped out of the spotlight. This quick rise and fall showed just how fragile the buzz around his new music really was. Industry voices have been sounding alarms about the overall state of album sales, and Bieber's situation highlights the larger problem. Interest in new projects feels weaker than ever, and many listeners are simply indifferent to what's coming out. As the Grammy deadline approaches on August 30th, predictions are already circling. Insiders believe Lady Gaga's recent work has the strongest chance of being recognized as Album of the Year, unless another artist delivers a surprise release that shakes things up. Despite the discouraging sales, Bieber hasn't been completely counted out. There's still some talk that he could receive a Grammy nomination in the R&B category. That's because the album debuted at #1 on the R&B chart, a strong showing that might influence voters when nomination time arrives. The catch, however, is that this album represents a major change for him. Bieber became a household name through catchy pop hits and upbeat dance tracks. This time, though, he leaned heavily into R&B, aiming for a different sound and style. The small but loyal group of fans who bought physical copies, those 6,000 people, clearly supported this new artistic choice. But the wider audience that once made his album's unstoppable hits didn't respond in the same way. Many longtime followers have openly said they'd like him to return to his earlier pop-driven style, which gave them the energy and excitement they fell in love with years ago. So how did things get to this point? One of the biggest reasons seems to be the lack of traditional promotion. For years, artists have relied on media appearances to launch their albums into the mainstream. Shows like Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, and Saturday Night Live often give artists a huge push right before or after release. But Bieber skipped these stops entirely, which meant the album never had that extra exposure. Fans noticed the difference immediately. In past eras, the release of a Bieber album was almost like a cultural event, filled with constant updates, interviews, and social media hype. This time, the buzz was noticeably absent. Social media conversations about the project were quiet compared to his previous launches, leaving people wondering why there wasn't more energy behind it. Some observers believe Bieber's struggles with social anxiety may explain this change. Over the years, he's spoken about how difficult public appearances and interviews can be for him. If that's the reason he avoided promotion, it makes sense from a personal standpoint. Protecting his mental health is far more important than following industry traditions. Still, the choice seems to have hurt the album's ability to reach a wide audience. Another piece of the puzzle is the way music consumption has changed. In the past, success was measured by how many CDs or digital downloads an artist could sell. Today, physical album sales barely matter compared to streaming. Most people don't own music anymore. They stream it through Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, or YouTube Music. That shift has completely changed how artists measure their reach and how much money they actually make from their work. For big stars like Bieber, the challenge isn't just releasing music. It's figuring out how to turn streams into meaningful cultural impact and revenue. Streams can make a song popular, but they don't carry the same weight as millions of fans rushing out to buy a copy. The industry is still trying to adapt, and Bieber's steep drop shows how even the biggest names are vulnerable in this new landscape. Reactions from fans to Justin Bieber's recent public appearances have also shaped how people view him today. Some longtime supporters have voiced disappointment, saying he seems less warm and approachable when interacting with fans. Whether these moments are based on reality or just perceptions, they can make a difference. An artist's relationship with their audience is built on connection, and if that bond feels weaker, it can directly affect how willing people are to support new music. This challenge isn't unique to Bieber. The modern music world is incredibly crowded. Each week, countless new songs and albums are released, all competing for the same attention. To stand out, artists need carefully timed strategies, consistent promotion, and a clear plan to keep their work in the public eye. Without that structure, even a global star can see their project fade into the background as listeners quickly move on to the next big thing. For Bieber, part of the story is also his shift in he has leaned more toward R&B and hip-hop in this phase of his career, a choice that reflects his personal growth and evolving taste. Many musicians go through similar transitions as they age, searching for music that feels more authentic to them at that stage of life. This kind of evolution can be fulfilling for the artist, but it doesn't always line up with what fans expect or what the market rewards. Commercial success and personal satisfaction don't always overlap, and finding balance between the two is one of the hardest challenges in the industry. Timing also played a role in how this album was received. The music industry runs on cycles, and some seasons are better for launching new work than others. Releasing during a busy period, when several major artists are dropping projects, can make it harder to get noticed. Cultural events, holidays, and even seasonal listening habits all shape how an album performs. If the release window isn't favorable, the odds of breaking through shrink considerably. When you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, Bieber's situation shows how the music business is still changing at a fast pace. Success today is measured very differently than it was even a few years ago. Album sales no longer carry the same weight, and streaming numbers don't always tell the whole story either. Analysts point out that to thrive in today's environment, artists need more than just strong music. They must build multiple sources of income, keep fans consistently engaged, and carefully plan how and when to promote their work. The artists who succeed are often the ones who adjust quickly to these changes. They understand how the landscape is shifting and find ways to stay connected with their audience despite new obstacles. For Bieber, one underwhelming album doesn't erase a career filled with achievements. Many legendary musicians have faced commercial disappointments that were later reevaluated and even celebrated as turning points in their artistry. Sometimes the projects that sell the least end up gaining a cult following or critical respect years later. At the same time, this chapter underscores how important it is for artists to understand their audience. Fans usually celebrate when their favorite musicians take creative risks, but they also want to hear echoes of the sound that made them fall in love in the first place. Balancing fresh artistic exploration with familiar elements is one of the toughest parts of staying relevant over decades. It requires careful thought, long-term vision, and the courage to make choices that may not always please everyone. Going forward, many observers are curious to see how Bieber responds. Will he return to the pop-driven sound that originally launched him into global stardom, or will he continue down the R&B and hip-hop path he has chosen? His decision will likely shape not just his next project, but the broader direction of his career for years to come. In today's industry, being an artist often means being an entrepreneur as well. Success depends on more than talent. It requires an understanding of how the market works, what motivates fans, and how to adapt promotional strategies to changing times. Those who master both the creative and business sides are the ones who usually manage to stay at the top. Bieber's recent struggles are a reminder that even the biggest stars are not immune to shifts in consumer habits and market trends. The entertainment business is unpredictable, and what works for one project may completely fail for the next. Resilience and adaptability are now essential qualities for long-term survival. As this story continues to unfold, it becomes another example of how quickly the industry evolves. Artists, record labels, and listeners all have to adjust to new realities while holding on to the passion that makes music meaningful in the first place. This album's performance will likely be studied as a sign of where the music business is heading and how even superstars must adapt to stay relevant. Remember to subscribe for updates on Justin Bieber and other major artists, along with the latest stories shaping the entertainment world.